Hi everyone, this is Caitlin with Kait's Collectibles. So today I'm going to be talking about the Sailor Moon figure from the S.H.Figuarts line. I've been waiting a little while to do this review just because she's a figure with a lot of moving parts, so to speak. So she's a little bit more complicated and I wanted to give her a little bit more in-depth review. So hopefully I do a good job for you guys. So starting with the box here, I pre-ordered my Sailor Moon when they announced her. So I got the special bonus of the first release or first edition release, which is highlighted on this gold sticker here. It just included 2 extra expressions for her. So it mentions both a winking and a crying expression being included because she's the first edition. If you order the figure now on places like Amazon, I don't know that they come with those bonus plates because it's a second edition or a reprinting of the toy, so it may not come with those, but mine did. It also has the official logo sticker down here in the corner. Something I mentioned very briefly in a previous review, but something to be aware of with these figures, especially when you're looking at them on places like eBay, is that now some of the bootleggers have gotten pretty wise to the fact that people are looking for those stickers. So what they're doing is you'll see the figure with the box. A good sign that it is a knockoff is they will say it's the China version or the Chinese version of the figure. They usually have very sloppy paint and the joints do not work very well. So if you're willing to buy it knowing it's a bootleg, that's usually a really good sign. The sticker that I mentioned will either not be present or it will actually be printed on the box. So they've managed to scan the box cover with the sticker on it, and it just becomes like a black and white sticker that isn't actually raised on the box, it's right on the cardboard. The other thing to look for that's a good sign that it is a bootleg is in this bottom corner down here. The logos there for Tamashii Nation and Bandai will be missing on the bootleg. So it'll just be yellow in this bottom corner here. So you won't find those logos on the Chinese version or bootleg products. So whenever you're looking to buy, if you're looking to buy one of these figures because they're heavily bootlegged right now, please make sure that you talk to the seller and confirm that it is the Japanese or North American release of the product if you're concerned at all about getting a bootleg. So just to go around the box, one of the things I like about this figure is there's a lot of different pieces. So you can position her all different ways, all different poses. All of the classic ones are there. They highlight her at the end of her transformation on the front of the box. So she's standing there in position. As you go around the sides, you see her in other poses that you can use. So preparing to use the moon stick to fight, or on the other side, raising it up in the air so you can't really see it there. And the top. Just another position, as well as the back of the package shows off a few of the different positions you can use with her, and it points out that she comes with Luna, who you can see is standing at her feet. Now, for the most part, I really like this figure. My complaint with Luna, unfortunately, down here at the bottom, is that she didn't come with any kind of a base, and so it doesn't seem to matter what kind of surface I put her on, she constantly falls over. Luna also has some articulation, so you can actually move her head around. And her tail has maybe like a little slight bit of bend to it, but not anything too crazy. But because, as you can see, her little feet are very close together, it didn't give her much of a base to stand with. So when you put her down, you really have to do it quite carefully. And if you're repositioning other figures, every time I knock her over. So you just have to keep an eye on her and constantly reposition her where you want her. Now the Sailor Moon figure itself is really quite nice. All of the figures, at least that I have so far in the line, have these heart-shaped bases with the character's name and symbol on them and in their colors. So Sailor Moon's got the crescent moon, the heart-shaped base, the little stars and ribbons at the bottom. Another thing about these figures is that they did put a lot of care and detail, I think anyway, into the painting. I've mentioned this in the past, but for the most part it's got pretty clean paint lines. There's the odd spot where maybe it gets a little bit messy, but as you kind of scroll up the figure here, you can see the color of the skirt. It doesn't bleed into the rest of it. The brooch in the center is actually really quite nice on her bow. It's her first season transformation, so they were trying to represent the first season brooch. And I've got her kind of her shouting face on. Now with this figure as well, her ponytails that extend down from the Odangos, the plastic does fade, so it becomes sort of a more clearish tone at the tips of the pigtails, which might be hard to see, but you can kind of see that it goes darker to lighter and it gets a little bit more clear here. There is a special version of this figure that they released, I believe it was just at a certain convention, where she was supposed to be more true to the anime colors. So rather than being kind of that pinkish red with her bow and her gloves and her boots, it was more of a true red. And that one, as I understand it, had different style to the pigtails. They were like a solid yellow throughout. Now the figure is very articulated. So all the different points that can bend on her that you would probably imagine you might want to for positioning her do. So if you started her feet down at the bottom here, even the, I'll just move her accessories out of the way. Even the tips of her feet bend. So you can actually do some really cool like kicking and fighting type positions for her, or trying to recreate, you know, the look of her transformation or that sort of thing. The knees bend really nicely as well. And they do hold their position, which was kind of my concern when ordering the figure. Was I've had other action figures in the past like this that claim to articulate and then the joints are really loose. So when you go to position them with something unusual, it just slides right back to where it was when she was standing. In her case as well, you've got the articulation in the elbows. There's a number of different hands, all of which spin right around. And then the head and neck articulation as well. Now, one of the things I've heard some fans complain about with this figure is the stand. The elbow joints that connect from the base up and around, unfortunately, aren't great. I find them very stiff and really quite unforgiving, hence why she kind of is standing like a little bit of a hunchback. I have a hard time getting her to stand up nice and straight in a normal position without the joint coming up so high on her that it makes it awkward. It does take a little getting used to, a little bit of practice. So I'm sure if I played around with her more, I could probably come up with some more creative ways to position her here. Oh, I did forget to mention that her Odangos are slightly articulated as well there with the ponytails. So this figure comes with a lot of different face plates and accessories. Obviously Luna and the Crescent Moon wand, which I'll just kind of hold up there. Now this is the version of the Crescent Moon wand with the silver crystal. So it's got the nice clear plastic silver crystal, unlike a pink one, like the one that came with the Serenity Petite. And considering how tiny that detail is, they did a really nice job of the painting on these things as well. But I'll open up the box here and we'll pull out some of the other face plates and things. For me, these are the kind of figures that I do want to take out of the box because they have so much to offer. I usually play around with them for a while, and then once I'm satisfied, I repackage the pieces that I am not going to use right away so that I don't accidentally lose anything. I'll just set that behind her there. So it does come with some instructions. The first thing is regarding the base. So it shows you how you should have it put together and how you should bend it. So the X obviously means don't do this. The O means it's the acceptable way. So you want to do the bending closer to the joint just to put less stress on the joint. And it shows here too, when you change the angle, it does have English, which is kind of nice. I pre-ordered this from a Japanese site, so the little bit of English that is on it was kind of a surprise. But that's all that piece is. They also come with some very essential instructions in terms of learning how to change the faces on the Figuart itself. It shows all the accessories on the page, and then it also shows you how to change the faces out. So the bangs actually detach. So you have to take her bangs off first, and then the faceplate. It's pretty important to note because when I was first looking at her, they did such a nice job, and I'm so used to figures where they do have a little bit of that seam just from the mold itself that they, I didn't quite know if the bangs were actually going to come off. So this was reassuring to know that I wasn't using too much force. They also note here on the side with the different faceplates, this is the winking and the crying faces that were bonuses. And they also kind of show you that the stand clips around their waist, but really you can clip it anywhere that'll hold them up. So the packaging on the figure was pretty intense, obviously for good reason because there's a lot of little parts to hold in place here. And everything tends to jump out like a game of trouble, basically, when you try to pop it out. So it does come with another version of the moon stick, the one that does not have the silver crystal attached to it. So depending on what scene you're trying to recreate, that is in there for you. They've got a version of her hand where she's throwing her moon tiara. So it's got kind of the disc. They also have a number of other hands. They've got one that's gripping. They've got the, I guess, kind of the, I don't know, her sort of peace sign over her forehead thing. Fists. They've got pretty much anything you can imagine that she would have used in the course of the series is in here, which is really fun to play around with. One of the things I'll show here with the figure, I'll detach her from her stand so I can show you guys, is removing a hand to replace it. Now, removing any of the pieces on these I find a little difficult just because everything is a bit stiff. So I'm always worried about breaking the figure, and I have heard horror stories from people. But you do just have to gently pull, and the joints pop right off, leaving a little plastic nub right there on her. And then the new one, you have to firmly push into place. It doesn't pop or click or anything like that. You just know that you've got it on there because it's attached, as opposed to being able to pop right off. Now the faces that come with her all come in their own little plastic section with a lid. So fortunately I can kind of just show all of these off and we can scan through them. So they've got her serious face, the crying face, the winking face, sort of her happy face, and then her, I don't really know what to call that, her pseudo-serious happy face, if that is an expression that she has, as well as the yelling one that I have on her right now. So just to demonstrate what it looks like to try and actually take one of these figures apart, we'll use the winking one since that's a bonus. So the back of the faceplate has a few little pegs in it that connect to the head of the figure. So in terms of taking the bangs off the figure, you do have to be pretty firm with it. I've done it a few times with mine, so she's loosened up a little bit now, but the first time I was seriously worried I was going to break her face off. So the bangs have these little clips here as well that lock in place. And then similarly with the face plate, you do also have to be pretty firm to get that to pop off of there. Fingernails help. So now she looks scary, basically, without anything on her face. But you can see where the little holes are that everything punches into. So they did make it pretty simple in terms of actually changing faces in and out. And it was I would say, a fairly smart design because it also gives them the option to release additional expressions, hair, that sort of thing later on. So you just firmly push everything back into place and she's ready to go. I'm usually rather picky about making sure that I put all my pieces back in place. Even as a kid with my figures, I was like that. I had special places to put everything. So if you don't have a case that you like to put stuff in, they did make it pretty easy for you to be able to put everything back into the original packaging because all of these faces have the same basic shape. So it's quite easy to just pop one in. The only problem I have with these is that because the plastic is, I would say, a little bit looser so that it can accommodate different shapes for like the hands and things, it's a little hard to sometimes get them all facing the same direction. So that is the Sailor Moon Figuart, the first edition. I did not bother getting the one that was the specific anime colored one, simply because it was, I thought, quite a lot of money, honestly, for what it was. And I was pretty happy with the color and appearance of this one. Right now I do have two other figures from the line that I'll eventually be doing reviews on. And I've basically been waiting to get good deals on them. So short of pre-ordering this one because I knew I wanted Sailor Moon since she's my favorite character, I was fairly content to wait on a lot of the others. Usually I find that when I compare deals on websites that I like to pre-order from, places like Ami Ami or CD Japan or even Big Bad Toy Store, I find that once you factor in the shipping and the extra fees, it doesn't end up being that much cheaper than just waiting until Amazon has an official release, because the cost of one of the figures is still going to give you the free shipping if you want it. So I'm a big fan of waiting for Amazon. But that said, when there's a pre-order for something and you know you really, really want it, Ami Ami is usually a really good choice, probably followed by the other ones I mentioned. And I've been strongly considering, since now they've announced the Super Sailor Moon figure, whether or not I'd potentially be getting her. So that'll be a decision for down the road. I'm waiting for Amazon on that one as well. So I hope you enjoyed the review of the Figuart. If there was anything that I didn't show off about the figure that you'd like to see me do for the other ones that I have, please let me know. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share the video, and I'll keep reviewing things for you. Thanks.